A political spectrum is a way of visualizing different political positions. It does this by placing them upon one or more geometric axes symbolizing political dimensions that it models as being independent of one another. A political compass is a multi-axis model used to label or organize political thought on several dimensions. There are several types of political compasses with varying number of axes. One such political compass is an online test aptly named the political compass. The political compass is a two-axis model with four quadrants that represent economic left and right, as well as authoritarian and libertarian up and down, respectively. The terms left and right have been used to refer to political affiliation since the early part of the French Revolutionary era. They originally referred to the seating arrangements in the French Legislative Assembly when the king was still the formal head of state and the moderate royalist sat on the right side of the chamber, while the radical oppositionist to the royalists sat on the left. The right thus implied support for aristocratic, royal, or clerical interests, while the left implied opposition to the crown's interest. The meaning of the terms left and right has evolved over time. For example, these terms are widely used in the modern United States to be associated with liberal and conservative, respectively. The contemporary left in the United States, in general, implies a commitment to egalitarianism, support for a liberal social policy and multiculturalism, while the contemporary right usually emphasizes free market economic principles and often prefer state and local governmental power to federal power. Left versus right is an imprecise, broad, dialectical interpretation of a set of factors or determinants. The left and the right are usually understood to represent polar opposites for each determinant, though a particular individual or party may take a left stance on one matter and a right stance on another. Left-right politics, or the left-right political spectrum, is a common way of classifying political positions, political ideologies, or political parties along a one-dimensional spectrum. The contemporary left usually defines itself as promoting government regulation of business, commerce, and industry, protection of fundamental rights, especially freedom of speech and separation of church and state, and government intervention on behalf of racial, ethnic, and sexual minorities, as well as the poor. The essence of liberalism is to secure a social order not based on a rational dogma and ensuring stability without involving more restraints than are necessary for the preservation of the community. The contemporary right in the United States is broadly defined by upholding a traditionalist understanding of constitutional law, protection of fundamental rights, opposition to governmental regulation and income redistribution, as well as immigration control. These stances are motivated by traditional values, conservatism, protection of freedom and the rights of private individuals, libertarianism, or doubts about the benefits or efficacy of governmental regulation. The other dimensional political spectrum axis on this model is the authoritarian-libertarian polarity. Authoritarianism describes a form of social control characterized by strict obedience to the authority of a state or organization, often maintaining and enforcing control through the use of oppressive measures. Authoritarian regimes are strongly hierarchical. In an authoritarian form of government, citizens are subject to state authority in many aspects of their lives, including many matters that other political philosophies would see as erosion of civil liberties and freedoms. There are various degrees of authoritarianism. Even very democratic and liberal states will show authoritarianism to some extent, for example, in areas of national security. Usually, an authoritarian government is undemocratic and has the power to govern without consent of those being governed. Libertarianism is a political philosophy maintaining that all persons are the absolute owners of their own lives and should be free to do whatever they wish with their persons or property, provided they allow others the same liberty. The principal tenet of libertarianism is the principle of self-ownership. To libertarians, an individual human being is sovereign over his or her body, extending to life, liberty, and property. As such, libertarians define liberty as being completely free in action, whilst not initiating force or fraud against the life, liberty, or property of another human being. Libertarians favor an ethic of self-responsibility and strongly oppose conscription and the welfare state, because they believe coercing someone to provide charity or military service is ethically wrong, ultimately counterproductive, or both. Apart from some basic principles favoring personal freedom and free markets, there is not a canon of official libertarian beliefs, but these ideals set a stage for this philosophy. Between these two converging axes, you can glean a more accurate perspective and hopefully challenge your core beliefs, as well as learn to relate with others along the political spectrum, and ultimately project yourself into the world to create positive change for humanity's future.